We know the migrant crisis is affecting cities all over the country, but particularly New York, Chicago, and a handful of others. And we know that people are getting fed up with this. In fact, at Staten Island, in Staten Island, I should say, which is the only borough of the five boroughs of Manhattan that tends to vote Republican by majority. The only one. The others are as blue as it gets. Never forget, Hillary Clinton set up her 2016 headquarters in Brooklyn. So the rest of the city is overwhelmingly Democrat. I think 80% of New York voted for Biden in 2020. Does that sound about right? I think it was 80% of NYC. I mean, I tried, guys. I was one of those Trump votes. Got to keep it quiet when you're walking around Manhattan. But Staten Island, they got people protesting the migrants, and here's a woman who's telling reporters that she's sick of this. She's sick of what's going on. She's been there for 70 years. Play clip 8.
When our ancestors came here, they came here grateful. So they needed a job, a sponsor, and a place to live. They come here and everything's handed to them, and we're bearing the brunt of it. I've never been afraid in this community. I'm living here 70 years, and this is what we get. Ungrateful. They're ungrateful to the citizens.
Thank you,
and you know why they're doing it? Because they want them to vote. Because that's the only way they know they're going to win, if these people vote for them.
So I like her passion. You notice she says that this is about the votes down the line, but also that some communities are bearing this burden. What's interesting, Clay, is even the governor of New York now, Kathy Hochul, is out there saying, yeah, no, we love all the illegals. Like, that's great. Just don't come to New York right now, please. Play 6.
But we have to let the word out that when you come to New York, we're not going to have more hotel rooms. We don't have capacity. So we have to also message properly that we're at our limit. If you're going to leave your country, go somewhere else. But the smarter thing is to apply for asylum before you leave your country, and then you'll have a different experience when you arrive. But
okay, she's not very smart. They're not applying for asylum, which would actually mean they're applying for refugee status. Asylum is when you're in the country. Refugee status is when you're outside trying to get into the country, because they won't get it. The reason they're not applying, the reason they're walking across the border is they're not legitimate. Overwhelmingly, 80 or 90% of these people are not going to get any permanent status under the asylum guidelines and regulations. But Clay, I also sit here and think, why isn't New York overjoyed at this? This is it's a sanctuary jurisdiction. They refuse to help the federal government with immigration law. This is what they should want.
This is, I just want to focus for a sec again on what we're doing with Venezuela in particular. Venezuelans, I think there's now 500,000 Venezuelans in the United States. They now can all go get jobs. That's what my understanding is of the new policy that was just announced by the Biden administration. Even though they're illegally here, they all now have, correct me if I'm wrong, Buck, but I believe this, I'm trying to simplify it. They now can go get jobs. What do you think is happening right now in Venezuela? If
it's not good, but it's not good, by the way. Yeah. Venezuela is in terrible shape.
Take yourself out of whatever life you are in right now listening to us in the United States. Pretend that a friend or family member called you and said, you're not going to believe this. I'm making 40 times what you are making in Venezuela right now. And Joe Biden wants you to come here because they just gave the go-ahead. We can all go get jobs here. Venezuela is, and I have to be careful not to curse, a socialist crap hole. It is a disaster. If you were stuck in Venezuela right now and you had a family member who called you from New York City, a place that you've seen on the movie screen, a place that you have seen as this beacon of liberty, freedom, and opportunity, and that family member said, Joe Biden just said, you can get a job. You're going to make 40 times what you're making right now in Venezuela. If you are moderately healthy, why would you not put every dollar that you have in your pocket and try to figure out a way to get to the United States? Incentives matter, and there's already 500,000 here, Buck. Millions more are coming because why wouldn't you?
Here is Governor Hochul. She says, don't come here. But then she says, you know what's great? Giving 500,000 Venezuelans work permits. Play 5.
You have to ensure that we can also have controls at the borders and not welcome even more people to come who think they're going to come for the job. So this is a good approach, and I thank the president for having a limit. This is for people who came before July 31st, so it's not an enticement for more to come after. I think that was an important consideration. But also, it really does have to slow down at the border because the volume keeps growing and growing.
It only applies to Venezuelans, and this is a huge chunk of people. It's almost 500,000 people. But do you think that this will actually have a measurable effect on the problems that New York specifically is facing?
It certainly will, because about 41% of the people in our shelters today are from Venezuela.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, hold on a second.
This is so dumb.
The notion that it only applies, don't worry about it. It's not an incentive. It only applies to the people that got here before July. I mean,
31st.
we're in September. Yeah. So, you know what's going to happen is everybody else is going to say, oh, great, I'll just be part of the next tranche. I'll be part of the next work permit giveaway. No one thinks this means you shouldn't come. Everyone who's thinking about coming is saying, oh, great, I'll be part of the next 500,000 and the next 500,000 after that.
You actually rewarded the people who broke the law the fastest. I mean, this is what it is. You're saying, hey, those of you who broke the law the earliest, you're in under this new number. And by the way, people are going to lie. I mean, do you think people are stupid? People are going to claim when they try to go get jobs, when did you get here? Oh, I got here April 28th. Okay, you're good. You know, I mean, this is not going to be a rigorously enforced paper check, I don't think, to see whether or not you fit the July 31st exemption. But all of those people are going to come here, more of them, and then they're going to say, well, actually, we're going to also give work permits to everybody who got here before Halloween or before the end of the year, whatever it is. And the numbers are just going to continue to skyrocket. The only way, so the incentive structure here is wild. You're clearly encouraged to come here. Again, just take it outside of however you may be frustrated about this, as both Buck and myself are as clearly over this. But if you're thinking about it from the perspective of a Venezuelan, everything that they're doing is making you want to come here, more likely to come here. And so what did we just hit? 10,000 at the border? I think from 160 countries, by the way, because when you have a wide open southern border, if you can get to South America, if you can get to anywhere in the Mexico vicinity, you feel like you can walk across the border. Most of these people right now are coming from Venezuela. What's the population of Venezuela, by the way?
About 30 million, give or take. It's a big country.
So just think about 500,000 people is like 1 in 60 Venezuelans. But yeah. It's a really substantial portion of Venezuelans that are coming here right now, and now it's going to be millions. We're talking about effectively huge parts of Venezuela just up and moving and becoming Americans in terms of living here. And by the way, Buck, this is also important. A lot of people who come across from Mexico, the data reflects that they go back and forth because they may come here and make money, and then they'll travel back down to Mexico. You know, it's very much of a trip, and sometimes you're here and sometimes you're there. People are not going to come from Venezuela and travel back to Venezuela very often. That is a long way. It's super expensive to fly. You may not be able to get back in. These people are here to stay. Again, Mexico, the data reflects that people will go back and forth across the border seasonally based on when jobs are available, all those things. If you come here from Venezuela, you ain't ever going back to Venezuela. You are never leaving the country. These Venezuelans are here forever. And we just said if you're right on 30 million, we're talking about 1 in every 60 people from Venezuela has come here in like the last year.
And it's going to
That's pretty crazy.
It's going to keep going. And the Biden administration response to this is to effectively encourage it. This is the part of it that everyone needs to understand. They'll talk about the border and they'll say, oh, we need to do something. When they surge personnel to the border, it's like they're sending more people to hand out water bottles and sandwiches. Like they're not actually stopping people from coming into the country. And the other part of this is when they're pulling this kind of, pulling the terms of the human resources they've got, the personnel, pulling them to deal with the illegal crossings that are going on in these kinds of numbers, Clay, the rest of the border in terms of illegal flow of fentanyl, I mean, it couldn't be any easier for the cartels to get it across than it is right now. It's a
Here's
mess.
a crazy stat for you, Buck. Almost the whole state of Wyoming's population is the number of Venezuelans that can now be here illegally and work. To kind of put that into perspective, there's 576,000 people in Wyoming. So we basically have moved the Wyoming of Venezuela to the United States, and we're saying, hey, you now have the right to work. And I'm telling you, millions more Venezuelans are coming because their country is broken because of leftist rule, and all of the incentive structure is for them to come. And again, as soon as you have a baby, that child is an American citizen. And the parents are never going to get kicked out if they have an American citizen child. This is crazy that we've allowed this to occur.